Warning, do not listen to this podcast if hearing about freedom and liberty is not legal for you in your community. And if so, you should immediately move to a hipper community.
Welcome to the Freedom Fiends Podcast, a weekly web lab where Michael W. Dean and Neema Vedadi cover the punk rockinist, hip-hopinist current events, as well as timeless universal truths about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because there's no such thing as half-free. The Freedom Fiends Podcast, available from freedomfiends.com. That's freedomfeens.com.
Freedom Fiends is proudly syndicated by Alterati.com and the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Welcome to the Vaporsmiths Freedom Hour with Freedom Fiends Michael W. Dean.
Broadcasting from my windowless bunker.
And Neema Vedadi.
Go Freedom Fiends!
Rolling. It's those Freedom Fiends. What to do, Michael W. Dean?
Yep. Everyone probably wonders why we start every segment with rollin'. It's because we're recording just our own end on each end, and then I sew it together later. So we start by going, I say 3, 2, 1, rollin', and on rollin' we both hit our record button. It makes it easier to sync it up later.
Oh, it definitely makes it easier to sync. Yeah, I've edited a few of the cast, and I always look for that rollin' and sync it up with Michael. Sometimes we're out of sync in the rollin', but it gives you a good barometer, a good measure of where to start.
Sometimes we're out of sync in the rollin' because, like, I say rollin' and you hit record, and I go, oh, wait, okay, and then hit record.
Yep.
Yep.
Just little things to look at if you guys want to do your own podcast, which we do encourage. The more freedom out there, the better, right? I mean, that's how you do it.
Yep. We're still going to be the best one, though.
I hope so. I actually had lunch with the Fiend. It was my first time having lunch with one of the Fiends, one of our listeners.
Somebody want a date with a Fiend?
Pretty much. Well, it was Kevin Lamoureux. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. He called in on Sunday, did the call-in show, and he was like, yeah, I'm out in Eastern Oregon. I'm like, oh, where at? And he was like, Umatilla. And I'm like, oh, that's like half an hour away from me. And he came to downtown for some kind of appointment, and we met up and ate some carne asada at Hacienda del Sol. It was fantastic. And the reason I bring it up is because I was talking about, that's how you do it. You got to get the freedom media out there. And he's sort of an OG. He's like 50-something, long white beard or goatee.
Hunter Fisher, amateur
gunsmith, all that kind of good stuff. And he was like, the thing I want to impart to the youth, the youth movement is don't waste all your time and energy fighting in the trenches for the man, and I guess that was sort of, for me, when he was saying that, I was thinking, no, that's kind of the takeaway of the Ron Paul thing, or the Rand Paul endorsing Mitt Romney, is don't spend all your time fighting for the man, fighting for political action, fighting on their battlefield in the trenches, because in the end, you're not going to win against the state that way. We have to do it our way, on our battlefield, the battlefield of the mind, because the state, they may control a lot of people's minds, but that's the only place we can really win. We can't fight the state on their battlefields.
I think that liberty people of that age, like over 45, over 50, have a lot to impart to younger people, which I think is a lot of it's historic. It's like, like him, like me, Bad Quaker, there's a Freedom's Phoenix, Ernest. There's a couple people out there doing freedom media that are older. And, then of course there's like Lou Rockwell, who's 107. But, I'm talking about like people who grew up in the Cold War can tell you why there's NDAA now. They can tell you why there's Islamophobia right now. Most people in America, I was interviewing someone yesterday about this, and, Davi, the Muslim agorist, which comes out on Anarchy Gumbo this Saturday.
Yeah.
A lot of people, he was saying this, and it's very true. A lot of younger people, like 30 under 30, under 35 in America have a very short historical view. Like, you don't, Neema, you know history. Like, you know who Mossadegh was and you know what happened with the Shah. You know, most people in America, like, don't even know who Khomeini is. Most young people. They don't know, you know, what the CIA did in the 60s. They don't know about Operation Northwoods. Do you know about Operation Northwoods?
Yeah, I do. The CIA, I think, came to John F. Kennedy and had this plan, a proposal for doing terrorist attacks inside of America and blaming it on the Cubans so they'd have an excuse to go to war with Cuba.
You know, I learned about it from the Bad Quaker. Did you hear the new Bad Quakers podcast?
Yeah, that's why I knew it so readily. Yeah. When he was talking about it, I was like, is he talking about Operation Northwoods? Because it's in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
That's why it came to my mind so quickly, because I had just heard that cast.
Yep. It's the new Bad Quaker podcast is one of the best he's done, and all of his are great. I highly recommend it. It's the one about chemtrails and stuff, and it's amazing. There are very few people I've heard who feel exactly the same way about conspiracy theories, particularly chemtrails and 9/11 trutherism.
Yeah. Me and you have both made his point before that we're not saying that the government isn't evil enough to do that. That's not how we're attacking it. Like, oh, they wouldn't do that. That's horrible. No, they could do it. It's just give us some better proof. And also, my point of view has always been, I don't necessarily want to spend all my time doing that because I already think the government or the state is the evilest thing in the world anyway, without taking down the towers.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people I think that concentrate on those two conspiracy theories in particular are people who, a lot of them are people who aren't necessarily non-statists. They are people who think the government needs to be reformed. There's a lot of liberals in those movements and Republicans and voters who basically think this is horrible. The people running things have to be removed and replaced with better people. No, you know, but it's like, it's their first inkling of, oh, the government governments may not have my best interest in mind. I'm like, really? Look at history, man. You know, look at America throughout its history. Look at England. Look at every nation that's ever existed. They're all a bunch of criminal thugs writ large. Although,
you know, like you're saying with young people, we often don't have as historical a perspective as some of the OGs. You know, a lot of people think history began on 9/11. And actually 9/11 truth was one of the first, for me, it was one of the first things that sort of opened my mind to, hey, maybe the government is evil. I'm not saying I'm a truther, but the first time I heard the ideas behind truth was very early. It was like a year after 2000, or after September 11th.
I'm old, man. I mean, we're both kind of at the same place in our journey, but mine took a little longer. The first time I was like aware and awake and said the government may not be out for everyone's best interest was watching the Vietnam War on TV.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Well, see, when I was coming of age, sort of in high school and stuff, Bill Clinton was in office, and, you know, he did some horrible things, but the mainstream people didn't really know about it or care about it. Yeah, he was popular.
You know, he played saxophone and got Hummers from plump chicks.
Yeah, exactly. And
the only him. They say he was the first black president, too, because he played saxophone and got Hummers from plump chicks.
And when you're young and the only thing that the media is really attacking the president for is because he got blowies from some intern, you're like, yeah, go Bill. Especially when you're like 15, you're like, man, I wish I could get a blowjob from anybody.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I grew up, I started, you know, learning more about the horrible things he did, like increasing the drug war, how much our prisons filled up more and more with not only people in general, but disproportionately black Americans, how he bombed Iraq constantly, how he starved 500,000 Iraqi children to death. Literally, Bill Clinton has the blood, and Madeleine Albright has the blood, or the distended bellies, at least, of 500,000 Iraqi children on their hands. And
didn't he also have an actionable intelligence and clear chance to kill bin Laden and went, I'm going to go have lunch?
Yeah, he did. Although I think they tried a couple of times with cruise missile strikes. I don't know if the intel was bad, or I'm not super clear on that history, but I do know that he was aware of bin Laden as a problem and didn't do much. Although when people complain about that, I'm kind of like, well, you know, as a non-aggressionist, was it okay? I mean, I guess it was okay to kill bin Laden because he bombed the coal, but only after that, right?
Yeah, well, didn't he also have something to do with the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center?
I'm fuzzy on that. I didn't think so, but if you have information to the contrary, I wouldn't be surprised.
And anybody who's listening and saying, 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center, you really need to listen to old people.
Yeah, well, see, kids should know that because there's a famous Biggie Smalls line where he says, I'm about to get paid, blow up like the World Trade.
Yeah, it was somebody parked it didn't level it. It was somebody parked a van full of explosives in the basement. The parking garage basement of one of them. Yeah, it killed some people, but that was kind of a dry run, really, for what they did later.
I guess the other horrible things about Bill Clinton was, Janet Reno and Operation Patriot and trying to push the story that right-wing militias were evil and they were going to try to take down the government, and from that, outgrows Ruby Ridge and Oklahoma City.
And the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Poverty Law
Clinton's
Center.
Fault.
The massacre of the Branch Davidians. There's so many horrible things Clinton did. And
I know.
I still have liberal friends who think back, from their younger days and think, I just wish it was like back in the day when Bill Clinton was in office, because they look back on it with rose-colored glasses. And I guess there's the old saying that every president makes you nostalgic for the last because they just get worse and worse and worse.
Well, part of that, too, is the internet didn't really exist as a thing much when Clinton was in office. It was just starting, and it was like...
whatever CBS told you, that's what you had to think about.
The news. I mean, if Ruby Ridge happened today, I don't think a majority of people would look at it as... Oh, they took out those horrible, violent people. The government. Thank the government for doing that, like they do now. It was Ruby Ridge and the Branch Davidians were cold-blooded murder by the governments of private citizens, including shooting a mother in the face while she held her baby and murdering her.
And dropping bombs on a room that they knew was full of the women and children. And then they raised the evidence. I mean, after it happened, the government just destroyed the whole complex so that the lawyers couldn't get in there and collect evidence.
They painted the Branch Davidians as racist too, which is a pretty bizarre allegation considering about a quarter of the people in that church were black.
I thought it was more than a quarter. I thought it was almost a majority. I'm not sure on that. Most of the information I have is from Scott Horton, who, for Scott Horton, that's really one of the things he's passionate about, because for him, that was kind of like 9/11. That's one of the things that woke him up. And he said he was a high schooler bagging groceries, and he remembers the little old ladies coming into town just being like, they need to just end this thing. I'm sick of this being on TV. I want to watch my stories.
Ugh. Yeah, and I think the average statist sheep American, when they hear that someone was racist, like they think that was enough reason to kill them too, just for being racist. When in reality, most people are racist in one way or another anyway, if in no more reason than that they support the drug war, which is inherently racist.
Right. Well, that goes back to they've been teaching everybody. I mean, what is PC? PC is basically a precursor to thought crime. They're trying to instill in us that if you believe certain things, if you think a certain way, then you're immoral or you're evil.
Yeah.
Whereas if you believe in the non-aggression principle, anybody can think whatever they want. You can daydream about whatever you want, whether that be, a wonderful lib pair or rounding up all the Jews. But as long as you don't ever act on anything evil, there's nothing anybody can do or say to you. I mean, you could disassociate yourself from somebody because you have freedom of association. I don't have to hang out with the people who want to round up all the Jews, but I'm not going to go in their house and kill them because they think that way.
Yeah. Can you imagine some of the sick fantasies that people in high level of government have? The same people that want to ban thought crime. Can you imagine what Eric Holder sits around and thinks? He's probably like in his mind written some mission statements of like white papers of like, okay, let's see, don't end the war on drugs. Just don't arrest any black people and then double up arresting white people and then off with their heads. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, see, I can't help but think that they're very similar to those commenters. Like, have you ever read, well, of course you've read news stories, but there are comments often in news stories, maybe about child molesters or sex offenders or young gangsters. And there's those people that say, well, I think we should just round them all up, put them on an island and nuke it. I bet those are the kind of thoughts that people in the government have. Well, we just need to do all, these horrible things to this group of people, and then we'll have a paradise.
Yeah. Or a common one with rapists or child molesters is, I hope he goes to prison and gets raped daily. Like that person is tacitly raping that offender through their words. I mean, not really. That kind of contradicts what I'm saying, but,
well, they're advocating for it. It's the whole Stefan Molyneux thing of arguing with the statists, and just once you get to that point where they're not agreeing with you, you basically say, well, do you wish that I would go to jail or prison if I smoke a joint? Do you wish people with guns would come and throw me in jail?
Yeah, I guess
they are advocating for you to be thrown in jail. They are
tacitly advocating because they're wanting the government to do it, and the government has the power to do it. Where if someone just sits around saying, I wish they'd round up all the white people, that person doesn't have the ability to do it.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing with statists is, in their mind, there has to be government aggression. In our mind, there doesn't have to be. So we're not asking for statists to be rounded up in libertarian re-education camps like you joke about sometimes. That's just the joke. We don't actually want that to happen. But a statist does want you to go to jail. They do want men to come point guns at you if you break their quote-unquote laws.
And have you raped repeatedly.
And literally implicit in that is you will get raped, because that is such a big part of the whole prison, I don't want to say industry, but the whole prison experience.
Dance.
Yeah.
People should listen to Scott Horton too. He's about 38 or something, but he's got the wisdom of someone who's about 290 politically. I mean, he knows more about the history of war in the world and government aggression in the world than pretty much anyone I've ever listened to.
Oh, completely. Because he's just a total specialist. I mean, here at the Freedom Fiends, we talk about pretty much anything. We're generalists. But Horton, anti-war has been his thing for ages.
But and it also, listening to him really cohesively to me points out how everything is war connected.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, really, what happened? This is a big thing too, and I've been noticing this in these differences of these propaganda films for schools from the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. In the 60s, something really, really clicked. It was subtle politically. Well, I mean, it wasn't subtle. It was like all of a sudden people were, showing their boobs and dropping acid in the street and actively resisting wars and doing their own thing and saying, F the pigs and down with the man, which had happened in small pockets everywhere throughout history, but not to the point where like 70% of college students were doing it and saying it.
Yeah.
The government was really freaked out by that, and squares were really freaked out by that. Mom and pop, the normal voter kind of taxpayer, like I pay my taxes kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
And they flipped out. And the government overreaction was insane. I mean, it was like ban all drugs, increase the war on drugs. And really what it did was it kind of was a tipping point of increasing the military industrial complex. And, the Federal Reserve printing a bunch of money to fund unfundable wars and war efforts. I saw this thing the other day. It was Janet Napolitano, Big Sis, says that they've bought more drones than they know what to do with.
They'll figure something out.
They cost
I have complete faith that they'll put them all to good use eventually.
They cost $500,000 to $7 million each, depending on the model and how they're armed. I mean, I'm expecting they're just going to have one hovering 300 yards above my yard at some point.
Yeah. Well, that goes to show you not only is it the horrors of having drones in the sky, but all the money they steal from you to do it. And not only that, but the opportunity cost. Think of all the cool things we could have had. Like you said, where did all the money for the flying cars go?
And the sex robots?
And the sex robots.
We would have sex robots if it were not for the military industrial complex. Even if there were a government, but not the military industrial complex, with the amount of like ingenuity and ability to innovate that America has historically had, even under a government before it went crazy caca cuckoo. And you hate it when I talk like this because it sounds minarchist, not anarchist. But I'm speaking like this for the minarchist who's just tuning in for the first time. You know, and I'm not saying, well, there should be some government. I'm saying, but even if you believe in some government, something's gone vastly wrong since about 1966.
Yeah. Well, on the back of my car, on my bumper, the middle bumper sticker is a George Orwell quote from 1984, and it says, "War is a way of shattering to pieces the material that would otherwise make the masses too comfortable." So basically, his idea, at least in 1984, was to keep people to where society is stratified and you have a populace that's easy to control. You destroy all of this wealth, and that way you're the one with all the wealth and all the power, and the people who would normally be comfortable don't have it at their disposal.
Have you ever seen the bumper sticker that's like a red, white, and blue, you know, election bumper sticker that says Orwell in 84?
No. Is that libertystickers.com?
Yeah, I think so. I was listening to a one of our past casts, and we were talking about, it was a recent cast, we were talking about Rex 84, you know, that Ollie North's plans to round up anti-war demonstrators into camps.
Yeah.
Which Bad Quaker really talked, everyone should go listen to Bad Quaker's podcast about chemtrails, because his thing about chemtrails and 9/11 trutherism is, I don't doubt, and I've never heard anyone that believes exactly this like I do, but he does, and he's way more eloquent about explaining it than I do, and has inside information as someone who worked in aerospace.
For General Electric, right?
Yeah, he has seen, he has been on forensic teams that have examined, you know, jet engines after crashes, and he has some comments about the crash site in Pennsylvania that I've never heard brought up before. But his basic thing is, governments have done such horrible things, including the American government, have done such horrible things throughout history. I don't doubt they could be spraying us with brain chemicals from airplanes. I don't doubt they could have brought down Building 7 with a controlled demolition. But the way that people go about trying to prove those things are full of so many fallacies, and they need to like look at real evidence. And he actually gives some that I've never heard before, was basically that he has seen, you know, he's been on teams that have forensically examined crashes of jets, you know, with jet engines built by General Electric when he worked there. And that crash site in Pennsylvania does not look like a jet crash site. But anyway, that Rex 1984 thing, I love that it's 1984. We didn't dwell very much on that. It's 1984.
I was born in 1984.
Wow. My daughter, who passed away, was born in 1984. Garrett was born in 1984. Garrett and you, my two sons.
So maybe it's the opposite. Maybe if you're born in 1984, you're a freedom lover.
There you go. So, yeah, we're going to go into talking about drones more. I don't know what the name of this cast is, but I know the picture I'm going to use. It's this picture that's been going around. It's a picture of Martin Luther King on one side and Obama on the other side. And it's Martin Luther King and it says, "I have a dream." And it's Obama and it says, "I have a drone."
He really is the drone president. I don't know if I think any president at this point, other than maybe Ron Paul, would have been the drone president, because that's just where the military-industrial complex was going. But he just seems to relish it so much. I reference in one of my new songs him threatening the Jonas Brothers with drones if they got near his daughters, like as a joke, like laughing about murdering kids, famous American
for
kids,
wanting to date his daughter.
Yes,
I mean, what a redneck thing too. You know, that's like the presidential version of you come near my daughters, I'm gonna cock my shotgun and blast your ass. You know,
just disgusting.
And
people laughed about it.
Thing, man.
It was at the annual. The press gala, I forget what the official name is, but we're all the people from the media.
I've heard Obama be accused of acting white, but that's acting really Peckerwood white. I'm going to shoot you if you come near my daughters.
I'm going to vaporize you with the Predator drone.
So a Navy drone crashed in Maryland.
Ah, did it? No, this was a Navy drone. It wasn't a domestic drone. So was it on a test run, or was it doing something that we wouldn't want it to do?
I don't know. I send you these links. You're supposed to read them. You've been busy making music. You've been stealing from the FEENS, making your hip hop record.
I have been. Well, lay it on me. I mean, what happened?
I think I'd rather violate your intellectual property rights and play this rough mix that you've done with.
No, don't do that yet. I got a new rough mix.
Okay. Okay. All right. So go on. I gave you some bass and guitar yesterday, and you did amazing things with it. But people can wait. Okay, I don't care. Let's get off the Navy drone crash in America. The point is, a drone owned by the U.S. government crashed in America, not far from a populated area.
And was this, a full-size Predator drone, or was this one of these little remote control helicopters that people like the Montgomery County?
God, you are asking me facts here. I wanted to go on to the next point here. I'm going to link it. It was an RQ-4A Global Hawk. Does that answer your fucking question?
Close enough. It was some evil big drone that could have been used to bomb people.
Yeah.
So you don't want you want the commentary.
This drone can fly for 30 hours without refueling at altitudes of at 11 miles. It is one of 5 drones based at Southern Maryland's Naval Air Force something River. Okay. It's manufactured by Northrop Grumman.
Of course. So I just got to go back to the Judge Napolitano stuff. Why aren't people more pissed about this? I mean, is it just that routine?
It's 44 feet long. Oh, this is a big one. It's 44 feet long, has a 116-foot wingspan, and weighs 25,600 pounds and cost $176 million. God. And crashes are highly unusual, Navy officials said.
Then why did it happen right in the middle of a highly populated area?
Well, it wasn't a highly populated area. It was in the middle of nowhere. But, Maryland, you're really never far from a highly populated area.
That's what I mean. I mean, it's not like it's Wyoming where you can drive from one city to the next and not see one car.
I mean, doesn't Blair Witch take place in Wyoming? I mean, in Maryland?
I never I
interviewed one of the guys who is in that movie, Josh, the guy with the beard, and he said that that the whole thing was kind of a ruse, obviously it was, but he said, at any point, anybody could have just walked for an hour and been out of that woods in any direction. Found a road.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And if it's a plane, what's the margin of error? It wouldn't have been that hard for it to end up in
planes
a place
that go 400 miles an hour. Yeah. 20 seconds later, and it would have crashed in someone's condo.
Man.
Didn't the Air Force recently have a jet crash into a condo?
Yes.
Somewhere?
Yeah. It was in, I want to say Florida. Nobody was killed. The pilot was able to, eject himself and landed in a neighborhood somewhere. But it did it destroyed a condo, or it was an apartment complex.
Hi, I'm Neema Vedadi from the Freedom Fiends Podcast, and I'm excited about Vaporsmith's electronic cigarettes. I dig the taste, and I dig the freedom to vape anywhere the nanny staters would wet their pants if I smoked.
Vaporsmiths.com is run by a liberty-loving entrepreneur, not some subsidized tax eater conglomerate.
I'm Michael Dean of the Freedom Fiends, and I love Vaporsmiths. I smoked 3 packs of tobacco cigarettes a day for decades, but now I'm only using Vaporsmiths. I love the flavors, I don't smell like smoke, and I save money, so I have more to spend on ammo and treats for my kitties.
Available in 4 strengths and 10 delicious flavors. Reds, classics, Turkish, menthol, strawberry, cherry, vanilla, coffee, minty mint, and cloves. Go to Vaporsmiths.com. Use coupon code FREEDOMFIEND to get 25% off your order. This is a limited time offer. Vaporsmiths at Vaporsmiths.com.
Tired of the false economy? Want to carry real money in a form that people will dig getting? Don't Tread on Meme now has Freedom Fiends and Guns and Weed silver dime cards. Collect all 4. Trade them with your friends. Freedom Fiends silver dime cards are also great for starting conversations with statists about liberty. Go to freedomfiends.com today and click the link at the top that says Silver Dime Cards. That's freedomfiends.com.
What does freedom mean? Tune in to LRN.FM to find out. LRN.FM is the Liberty Radio Network, a collection of live talk radio and podcasts, all coming from a principled pro-liberty perspective. LRN.FM show hosts aren't left, right, or conspiracy kooks. You can tune in 24/7 to LRN.FM via your phone, computer, satellite, and more. Listen free anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
You can subscribe to Freedom Fiends via the RSS link on the top right of any page. It's orange and marked follow. Or you can subscribe via email at the subscribe by email link at the top of the right sidebar on any page. It's a little bit below the search field. You'll need to respond to a one-time confirmation email, but after that, you will only receive an email each time a new episode posts. The Freedom Fiends respect your privacy. We will not spam you and will not sell, rent, or share your email address. And you are free to unsubscribe at any time.
So anyway, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it didn't kill anybody. It did destroy like a whole building of some multifamily housing unit. And in the news piece I saw, mainstream media news piece, I remember one of the things that struck me was the lack of people being upset at it. They felt sorry for the pilot of the fighter jet. They interviewed somebody who helped the fighter pilot guy get out of his parachute, apparatus out of the chair, and the person was like, it's okay, man. We're with you here. Don't worry. You didn't do anything wrong.
Oh God, was he stuck in the swing set?
Yeah,
with his parachute?
Yeah, he was like stuck in a tree or something, I think.
Yeah,
and
in England, if that happened in England and the guy was in a tree in front of your apartment building and you went out with like a knife to try to cut him down and help him, they'd probably arrest you for brandishing a knife in public.
The pilot would probably pull out his sidearm and shoot you. Do pilots carry sidearms?
Speaking of, well, that's an interesting little segue. Thank you for setting that up. Okay. Janet Napolitano, big sis, as opposed to Big Brother.
We might as well call her Big Brother. She looks pretty manly, doesn't she?
Yeah, there you go. Big Brother Janet Napolitano wants to stop arming commercial airline pilots to save money, and because it's not needed because the TSA is doing such a good job.
Whose money is it saving? Does the government provide airline pilots with weapons? I mean, are we?
Yeah,
really?
They do. They started about 6 years ago, which is an excellent idea.
Well, it's not excellent for the government to provide it. I mean,
take away that it's the state. Okay, stop being such a fucking anarchist for a minute. All right? In libpair. Yeah. Okay? Wouldn't you want the pilot of your airline armed?
Definitely. But I want him to have his own gun and just, carry it with him to work like I would.
Okay, but here's the thing. And I hate that you're such an anarchist. I mean, I'm a total anarchist too, but I hate that you can't have conjecture conversations about what's wrong with things under the current system without.
See, my wife always gets on to me about this too. She's like, "Well, what about such and such?" And I'm like, "Well, as an anarchist, blah, screw it all."
I know. I mean, if they legalized pot to where anybody could buy it and paid a tax on it, and it was cheaper than you could even buy it in a dispensary right now, you'd be screaming about the fact that there's a tax on it.
I'd be pissed until I bought some, and then I'd be okay.
Good answer. Although if it was government pot, it probably wouldn't be very good.
It'd be like 3-2 beer.
Well, because I've smoked government weed. I am one of the few people on this planet who smoked government weed.
Oh, yeah. You did not have high reviews of it, as I recall.
No. Put it this way. I smoked 2 joints of it and got a buzz. If you smoke 2 joints of chronic, you will be paralyzed.
Take 2 nice hits of it, and you're good for at least a couple hours.
So, but the thing is, Big Brother Janet Napolitano. I think we should do that as
we should call her Big Brother.
That should be a thing, man. Big Bro. I like that. The DHS, Department of Homeland Security, where she works, has purchased like millions of Glocks and like hundreds of millions of rounds of Glock ammo.
Yeah.
And it's like, they don't even know who they're arming yet. Like, they're just buying them to have them. I mean, there's a theory that they're buying them so
for some big crackdown.
There's also a theory that they're buying all the bullets to make it harder to get bullets for us. But I use the same Glock and the same caliber, and I'm not having any problem finding bullets. So, but the thing is, it's like, what are they going to cut down on money-wise with arming pilots? Like providing the guns. They already have all the guns.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I read about this in the NRA magazine, which I still get, even though I told them I don't want to, I canceled my subscription when they backed Harry Reid. But okay.
Wait, the NRA backed Harry Reid?
Yeah.
What the, man.
Yeah, about 2 or 3 years ago, he,
and they endorsed Romney too, didn't they?
Yeah, of course. And they don't mention the existence of Ron Paul. But, they backed Harry Reid because he stole a bunch of tax money and built a rifle range. He's a total anti-gunner, but he built a rifle range in his district to help get reelected. Yeah, but
that's why I freaking hate politics, man.
Yeah.
It's just a freaking game, and it's all BS. Y'all need to stop paying attention.
So anyway, to get to what I'm talking about, the DHS has more Glocks than they know what to do with, more bullets than they, I wouldn't say could ever use, but than they need right now. And they're trying to cut money of arming commercial airline pilots to save money. I guess the only other charge is the training. And here's the thing. I guarantee, I will pledge the NRA will do this on their behalf, even though I hate them. The NRA would voluntarily, for free, train all those pilots in gun safety and gun using.
Completely. Yeah. And if the NRA didn't do it, some other better gun rights organization would, I'm sure. There's plenty of people who would volunteer.
Well, NRA has the capacity size-wise and the number of trainers to do it.
That's true.
The NRA actually started in the 1800s to train American servicemen in riflemanship because they felt that American Army people and people of other branches couldn't shoot well enough.
Well, isn't there still something, I don't know if it's called this, but something to the effect of the American Marksman Program that is in some way related to the state that will still sell like surplus M1s to you? Yeah,
if you take a training through the NRA, you could get an M1 Garand from at a reasonable price, like $600, I don't know, $800 or something, which is...
Is it really that reasonable? I thought it was more than that.
I don't know, but it's cheaper than walking into a gun shop and buying one.
Right. It is at a reduced rate.
Yep. I think, here's what I think. I think Janet Napolitano wants pilots unarmed because she wants another 9/11 to justify the funding for the DHS, because they haven't really, even if you're a statist, they haven't done much to justify their existence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of, I guess even all those agent provocateur things, those weren't necessarily Homeland Security. Those were all FBI and CIA.
Was it you or someone else that said that the government has a 100% rate of success with taking down terrorist plots they initiate?
It wasn't me. It sounds almost like Will Grigg or something.
I think it was Scott Horton.
Yeah, it's probably Scott Horton.
So in my Gun Training with the Non-Aggression Principle DVD, which shipped yesterday.
Do you have a section on training pilots?
No, I have a section at the end, after the end credits, of recommended media, and it's really cool. Did you see the little thing for it?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's sort of a little logo parade, about a minute and a half long, with some groovy music in the background, and it's got in order, alphabetically, these are the ones I picked. This is why I'm saying this. Anarchy Gumbo, Anti-War Radio, Bad Quaker Podcast, Disindoctrination Podcast, Free Domain Radio, Freedom Fiends, Freedom's Phoenix, Free Talk Live, Pork Therapy, Sex, Lies, and Anarchy, and the Liberty Radio Network.
Yeah.
I really feel those are the most important ones.
I think so too, and I also think that it's such a great project you're doing here to bring the young libertarians guns, and also bring people who are new to guns libertarianism. I mean, kind of like with guns and weed, but more practical how-to kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, this actually, in a way, I mean, this is actually something I was thinking of doing before I met you and before we came up with guns and weed, but it's also kind of addressing a lot of the critiques of guns and weed. One thing that's come up again and again is people saying like, well, I don't like guns, but this kind of convinced me maybe guns are okay, and I like pot, but I wish there were more like about I wish
about
there were,
faces.
About guns about use of, what did you say? What'd you say?
I thought you were trying to say you wish there were more about faces of people changing their minds, weed lovers starting to accept guns and vice versa.
No, I'm talking about the weed lovers who were a little bit changed about guns, who there were comments, on different blogs and stuff. And
what's
on
the
Amazon.
next step? How do I get a gun? How do I use it?
Yes.
Of course. And is the trailer live yet, first of all? Because I did watch the trailer.
No,
but I don't know
we
if it's
can.
live yet.
I'll post it in the show notes. It's going to be live within a day or two. I'm just waiting for my distributor to say, yeah, go ahead and put ads on it. But, you know.
Well, one of my favorite parts of the trailer is when he's explaining non-aggression. Then he goes, but don't stop there. There's also the non-aggression 2.0, which is don't accept aggression.
It's do not initiate or aggression. It's
accept.
Do not initiate or accept aggression is the non-aggression principle 2.0. And I'm going to take some criticism for that because that's me declaring it like it's a thing. It's something I made up, but it's a solid thing, and it's something that I think is
it can still be
missing.
a thing, even if you made it up. Why not, right?
Yeah. I mean, really, to me, it's inspired by a bunch of things, but one in particular is a certain passage in Boston's Gun Bible, where he says, you know, something about, I don't know if he uses the word theorist libertarian, but he uses the word, you know, he says something like, you're not a very effective libertarian if you don't have a gun, you know, and he says, what are you going to do when, you know, when someone aggresses on you? Are you going to start screaming, you're initiating aggression, you're initiating aggression? And he said, fine, all fish wriggle when caught. That line, all fish wriggle when caught, was kind of my inspiration for a lot of thought that led to non-aggression principle 2.0, do not initiate or accept aggression.
Right. Well, I mean, I've always felt that part of being a free person is cutting your dependence on the state as much as possible. And if you don't know how to defend yourself, aren't you completely at the whims of the state defenders of people?
Right.
And they're not going to defend you very well at all either.
You know,
although
you know what's interesting? I've interviewed several people in New Hampshire who don't carry guns because their friends carry guns.
Well, that works too.
I know, it does. It's kind of like
trust somebody else. Why not?
You're contracting out to an independent defense agency in a way.
Yeah, you completely are. And that's the other thing is if you voluntarily agree to have somebody else defend you and they know that it's their responsibility. For instance, my wife doesn't carry yet, but every time we go somewhere and she feels a little bit, you know, like it's seedy or like we're in nature and there's going to be something that might attack us, she always asks me, hey, do you have your gun? You know, as like, I want you to have your gun right now. Make sure you have your gun on you. I'm like, yeah, of course. I always have it on me.
My wife not only carries, she would never ask me, do you have your gun on you when we go out of the house?
Because you always have it on anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I almost always have it in the backyard. Like occasionally, you know, probably 5 times in the past 3 years, I've been in the back, like DJ will be like, let's go sit in the backyard. It's nice out. And I'll go sit out there and I'll be there for about 2 minutes and I'll be kind of twitchy and I won't know why. And I'll go, we don't have a gun out here. And I'll run inside and get one, you know, but
nice.
I mean, when I'm gardening or doing yard work, like I always have them, but there's something disarming about my wife saying, let's go sit in the yard. I'm like, okay.
I gotta have my gat. Gotta keep my gat intact.
I know. So I've stopped not going out there. So, you know, anyone who wants to drone me, no, wait, drones wouldn't matter.
Well, she doesn't ask me because there are occasions when I don't have it. She just asks me because that's how she is. Like every night she asks me, is the door locked? And often I'll have to go get up and show her that it's locked, you know, jiggle the handle.
Well, I'm like that too. I'm not OCD at all, but I'm kind of OCD with home security. And I have gotten up, you know, I do get, like, I'll lock the door as like I do my rounds. I like walk around, shut all the windows, make sure they're locked. And go in a big circle around the house inside the house when I do it, because our upstairs is kind of a big circle. And, you know, I'll lock the front door. I'll get back in bed and I'll go like, did I lock the front door? And I'll get up and go check.
Yeah.
So I had a dream. I have a drone.
I had
a dream about worms.
That's right. You did.
Yeah.
See, it's because you say it so much.
I think it is, actually. It was kind of a gross dream, but it's a funny dream after I woke up. I had a dream that I was taking a nap in the afternoon, and I had a dream that I reached into my ear and pulled out like a mealworm, like a, 1 inch long, like kind of white slug type worm.
That's disgusting. Or was it a nematode?
Would you like to advertise your product or service to a large built-in audience of liberty-loving consumers who truly dig the free market? Freedom Fiends Live is now selling ad space. Slots are reasonably priced, but limited, so contact us today. Write the Fiends at talkback@freedomfiends.com or leave a message after the show at 765-27-FIENS.
Maybe it's because I was calling you on the other line.
Probably a bug in my brain, a nematode. No, but and then I woke up and I looked, and my cat Peanut was on the floor playing with my earplug, which he had pulled out of my ear while I was sleeping. So the feeling of a cat's mouth like licking my ear and biting and trying to pull this earplug out of my ear made me think that I had a worm in my ear in my dream.
That's creepy, man. I've had a few dreams like that where like insects like dig themselves into my body and lay eggs and stuff like that. Let's
change the subject. So, my cat loves earplugs. There's a couple things I have to hide from my squittins. Earplugs, which I sleep with one earplug in. It's kind of weird. And a couple times in the night, I'll like roll over and I'll actually wake up and take it out and put it in the other side, the one that's facing up. Mm-hmm. And it's not loud at my house. I think part of it is my own snoring wakes me up sometimes if I don't have an earplug in. But I think it comes from just living in loud neighborhoods. I got really used to, like, it's part of my going to sleep. I put an earplug in one ear, the one that's facing up. But
you're not worried that would prevent you from, like, hearing somebody busting down the door? Or?
Nah, because DJ doesn't do it. She's a light sleeper. And the cats, they're alarm cats. I mean, literally, like, the cats will jump on me if they hear a noise, like someone has in the afternoon. I mean, my sleep schedule is such that in the afternoon, sometimes I'm sleeping my night sleep and being as deeply asleep as in the night and sleeping for 8 hours. Right. And, when the UPS guy comes, doesn't ring the bell because my doorbell doesn't work. Doesn't knock on the door. They just know I'm home. When the UPS guy comes up on the porch, the cats will run in my room and jump on my bed and wake me up. Every time.
Nice.
So,
nice.
Yep.
See, I don't have that luxury. My dog won't bark. He won't roo. If somebody knocks on the door, he might open his eye or he might just lay there in the corner. But at best, he would go to the door and maybe wag his tail a little bit.
The cat.
Who's going to come pet me now?
The cats like earplugs because when they bat them, they sort of behave like insects. They kind of jump and move. But they really like guitar picks, man. They will like find ones downstairs and carry them in their mouth all the way upstairs to the other end of the house.
Nice.
And I used to
it's because they always see you putting your fingers on them, so they think if they have one in their mouth, then they might get pets.
Well, they also love sniffing my socks and underwear.
That's gross.
It's
I don't know what to say about that.
Well, my feet don't really smell. And it's not just me thinking that. Like, everyone I've ever lived with has been like, wow, your feet don't smell. But my feet sweat a lot. Like, I change my socks about 10 times a day sometimes if I'm at home, working up a sweat on the computer.
Maybe that's just them being submissive since you're always in those kind of relationships. Do they also say your shit doesn't stink?
No, but they come watch us while we poo. So maybe they think that.
Okay.
So
no, I think cats do that because they know they have a captive audience.
So you're
not going to get up.
I have a correction. I said entomology when I meant entomology in the last cast. Etymology, which I meant etymology, is the derivation of a word. Entomology is the study of insects.
Okay.
It's easy to remember because it sounds like
ants.
ant. Yeah. So
there you go.
I paid the Mumble server for 6 months.
Oh, good job. Good job. Oh, speaking of corrections, I'm not sure if you did this on air, but you had a correction that Knesset wasn't Knesset. You're saying it was Knesset, but I was looking up online dictionary pronunciations of it. Oh, I did talk about this already. I'm sorry, folks.
Well, what did you conclude?
I think it's Knesset, but with a quick K sound. So it's not like Knesset. It's like Knesset.
So I saw an interesting thing on the difference of how statists and non-statist people view things. Well, I don't know if Alex Jones is non-statist, but how like weirdos and cops view things. In Indiana on April 1st, they passed the law that cops can you can shoot a cop if he illegally enters your home and it's legal self-defense.
Yeah.
Which a lot of on Cop Block, the cop site, they reported that, and the first few comments were people going, nice April Fool's joke, until they realized it was real.
Because it was on April 1st,
yeah. But the difference in the comments, I'm going to read a couple of these comments. Do you want to pull some up too? Do you want to be the cop or the Alex Jones fan? I'll be the cop since I played one on TV.
Yeah, you can be the Dan Banning.
So
I'll be...
pull up the InfoWars one and you read a couple of the shorter comments on this
Do you have
article.
it in the notes or in the email?
I have it in the notes. It's in the notes on page 2 at the bottom. Maybe I didn't send you that. Is it in there?
I don't see it in the notes, but I'm pretty sure you sent me an email about it. So you can just edit this break out.
I'm not editing this break out.
All right. It's too much work for you, right?
Yeah, I'm going to send it to you, the link for the InfoWars stuff. I just sent it to you. The subject line is ASDF, because I just typed anything.
Okay, you start reading one of the cop comments.
All right, there you go. Yeah, it's like it's live air. Oh, I think I fixed the problem with the call-in number for Skype. If I didn't, I'm going to fix it live on the air. But I have another fix that's really complicated. All right, let's see. Okay, here's some of the Alex Jones fans' comments to the "you can now legally shoot cops in self-defense."
You be the cop. I'm going to read the Alex Jones ones.
That's right. I said it before, the vast majority of people think that any entry is illegal or unjustified without having any idea of the different circumstances law enforcement can make a lawful warrantless entry. This is going to put the wrong idea into the heads of the wrong people. And wow, this completely boggles the mind. How many people are going to automatically jump to shooting police because they believe the officer is acting unreasonably? Most people I've arrested think that they shouldn't be arrested and I'm acting unreasonably. And
because you are.
And there are going to be more dead people. Thanks, Governor.
Nice. All right. Now, Fight Back on an Alex Jones forum says, because idiot judges and sheeples need their memories refreshed. Public education producing ignorant slaves is one reason. Yeah, set 'em coppers straight. I'm tired of hearing how they step out of line all the freaking time. Better yet, fire them all. I do not need coppers protecting me. It'll give the corrupt government too much power they should not have. Back to our roots.
Did you see the one on? Did you see the one on there that says, "I've never thought of moving to Indiana before, but maybe I will"? Okay, here's another cop one. I assume there's no requirement for all citizens to take classes on constitutional law, for they know the difference between legal and not. And I'm thinking, like, most cops don't know the Constitution.
Yeah, even though they take an oath to uphold it.
This law will end up being more harmful to public safety than to help. There's 20 pages of responses on here. I'm going to read a few more of the good ones, but I can't find the one. There's a couple on here that basically say, like, I hope SWAT teams making entries really dot their I's and do their T's with their research and don't go in the wrong house because of this.
Yeah, I guess I can kind of see sort of a point of cops carrying more guns and more people with them, just assuming that people are going to shoot
Well, there's
back.
a couple of that, but there's also a couple of, like, maybe we need to rethink the illegal end. There are some cops on here that kind of are peace officer types on this board. They're few and far between, but...
Because I guess what I hope... in an optimistic mind that happens with this law is that cops will do less home entries.
Here's one. Maybe we just stop entering people's houses without warrants. Why put yourself in a situation which could result in your injury or death?
Nice. Do you think that's really a cop, or is that some kind of troll?
You have to be a cop to post on
that's right. It's Police One, isn't it?
It's vetted. Like, you have to have...
Yeah.
I mean, I guess someone could fake it, but it'd be pretty fucking hard. I mean, you have to, like...
more trouble than it's worth.
Basically, the way you could read it, anybody can read it, but to post on here, you have to fax, like have your commanding officer or cop fax in a request on your behalf from the cop shop.
Right. Kind of like those websites where you can buy guns at a vast discount if you're a police officer.
Yeah.
You have to have them fax over the paperwork. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. By the way, from Alex Jones Forum says, I'm loving the pushback. I hope more states get a clue. Another state is voting to end property taxes, and Alabama nullifies Agenda 21 through the state government and signed by the governor. People are getting it finally.
Yeah, I don't know if people are getting it finally, because a lot of, like, what state is nullifying Agenda 21?
He says Alabama.
I mean, does it really matter? It's a state in America. I'm sure that the same politicians who signed that law to nullify the UN Agenda 21 in their state are totally statist for their state,
Yeah.
In the stuff
I mean, it's a minarchist answer, but I mean, it seems like that'd be something that you wouldn't complain about necessarily.
Me?
You wouldn't complain. I mean, you're not complaining about the Indiana law. You wouldn't complain about Alabama trying to nullify Agenda 21 or another state voting to end property taxes.
I like how you're thinking. I like how you're thinking.
See, exactly.
You know, I would say anybody who's a theorist anarchist of like absolute anarchist, like I'm an absolute anarchist, but I don't have to take every discussion to absolute anarchist, which is the difference between you and I. And you just actually did it in my favor, which I like. You did it in the not absolutely anarchist case. Here's what I'll say. You are going to stop looking at everything as cut and dry. I can't discuss that in a non-anarchist way. As soon as you and your wife own a house and are paying property tax. Once you're paying $3,000 or $4,000 a year to rent something you own, you are going to be more in favor of laws that take away things like that. You're not going to go, but the government is taking away this law. That's horrible. You're going to go, I'm really glad they lowered my property tax. Or you're going to be like, fuck, anyway.
Isn't that part of the problem, though, that they always have you by the balls with things like that, right?
I mean, it is.
That's how the system perpetuates itself. Is they always have enough people by the balls that people will say, "Oh well, let's just work within the system to get the vice scripts loosened a little bit."
I don't even say work within the system, but I admit that a system exists, which a lot of anarchists don't even do, and a lot of them, I think it's because they live in their mother's paneled basement and don't pay for anything. They don't have a big financial stake in the game. I mean, everybody does. Everybody pays half their income to taxes in one form or another. Maybe not the poorest of the poor. They don't pay. Anyway, I don't want to sound like it's fucking Fox News here, but I am saying that I like that I can at least talk about things in a theoretical minarchist sense instead of taking everything to anarchy, I mean, listen to Ben Quaker. Like Ben Quaker, a lot of people say he's statist. He worked for the military-industrial complex developing aerospace technology that's probably used in drones. And I'm like, I'm glad he did because he has comments on drones that are better than mine and deeper and more scientific.
Yeah.
I'm
thankful for that too, but at the same time, I don't think you can change the system from the inside.
I think we need more people who've been in the system who leave it and turn, which can get you in a lot of trouble. But, he said, this is interesting too, is like a lot of the reasons people say the proof of chemtrails. I mean, he watched this video and deconstructed like the 8 things they say are proof. There was this Alex Jones produced video and they were all bunk. I mean, they were all bunk and he debunked all of the bunk.
Well, they seem to be bunk on their face. Like, I appreciate his efforts and they make complete sense, but I don't see how those arguments would have fooled anyone because the arguments were like, they're chemtrails because they stay in the air. Yeah. They're chemtrails because they crisscross. Yeah. It's like,
there's one argument.
There's more than one direction in the world. There's multiple directions in the world.
And he has the scientific background of having worked in aerospace to debunk some of the common ones that, but he said what we really need is what he'd really like to see is someone who used to do the spraying, who's like, okay, I'll say on record that this is happening and how we did it and why we did it and what it is.
Oh yeah, yeah. Or there's private storm chasers. Why can't somebody charter a private jet and collect some of the vapor and test it? It wouldn't be that hard. Alex Jones has money coming out of his butt.
The government controls the airspace a lot more than they control. If you started shadowing a military jet with your private jet, you would suddenly being shadowed by 2 or more military jets that are armed. Maybe the one you're following is just spraying or surveilling, but you'd be scrambled. In other words, they would scramble.
Yep.
There's one thing that Ben should have said that he didn't say that I would have been my argument is people say chemtrails are the reason that sunsets are orange and red. And I'm like, first of all, any 5-year-old knows why sunsets are orange and red. But I would have said, I've seen paintings from the 1600s and 1700s of sunsets that are orange and red. I would have said paintings. I've seen tons of paintings from back then. Before there were airplanes, there are visual representations universally. I think the Alex Jones people would say, oh, the government went back and repainted all of those.
Have you been looking for a safe, scenic, and inspiring place to live free? We chose Wyoming. Wyoming is the home of Free State Wyoming and the personal choice of Boston Tea Party, as well as the setting of his book, Moulin l'Abbé. Bring the family and stop by for the 2012 Free State Wyoming Jamboree for 4 days of camping, shooting, and barbecue. There'll be trading, hiking, a raffle, and plenty of activities for the kids. Admission is free for those under 18. Entrance and 4 days camping is $15. It's only $15 more for the barbecue and beer on Saturday. Visit freestatewyoming.org. There's even a one-day handgun course led by Boston. The handgun course is extra. The Jamboree is June 28th through July 1st in the beautiful Black Hills of Wyoming. Join us to explore our favorite area of the country and see if our choice might become your choice. That's freestatewyoming.org. See you there. Check out the Anarchy Gumbo podcast. Michael W. Dean of the Freedom Fiends cooks up a very special blend of liberty, guns, sex, rock and roll, drugs, and thriving in spite of the state in an increasingly worrying world. All with a rotating cast of nifty guests who are also up in the middle of the night. The Anarchy Gumbo podcast, a tasty stew of freedom and fun. Subscribe at kittyfeet.com. That's KITTYFEET.com.
On your knees, you dirty hippie! Jesus. On your knees! We're from the government and we're here to help you. Cuff him! Don't make me shoot this hippie. Is everyone gone? Here, put a gun in his hand. Say he's resisting.
Since time began, tyrants have taken aim at personal liberties. Now there's a movie that aims back.
The government has no more right to tell us what to put in our bodies than they have to take our guns or tell us what books we can read.
6 drug police were eaten by bears while raiding a marijuana farm.
On your knees, you dirty hippie! Jesus. On your knees! What's the problem, officer?
Today, many cops who enforce pot laws do so only because it provides them with cushy jobs, good benefits, and a chance to push people around.
I was an undercover narcotics officer. The drug war is nothing but a farce.
The Second Amendment says you gotta keep you and your gat intact.
Guns and Weed, The Road to Freedom. A film by Michael W. Dean and Neema Vedadi.
DVD available now at gunsandweed.com or on Amazon. That's gunsandweed.com. Makes the perfect gift. Remember, that's gunsandweed.com.
Rolling. What's up, Michael?
Yo, Neema Toad Vedadi, what's up?
I'm chilling.
So, we were talking, you got back from the vet, getting Z-Papers so you can travel with the dog. We're talking about times that we slept on floors, and I was going to tell you, this is funny, podworthy though. When we moved to Wyoming, we moved everything we owned in a U-Haul, and we did it the smart way, which is hired 2 movers on each end, but drove the truck ourselves. That's the cheapest, bestest, easiest way to travel, best way to travel. So when we got here, we were too tired to unload, so we slept on the floor the first night on a pile of clothes. And my friend Lou came in the next day to help us unpack some stuff before the movers got here. And he came in my room, and he was a totally empty room with wooden floors, no rugs, no bed. And he said, it looks like a drug dealer lives here. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he says, well, I'm looking on the floor. There's nothing in this room except a pile of clothes, a gun, a pile of cash, and a carton of cigarettes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Old school days. Yeah, when I first moved to Wyoming.
Yeah, I had $1,000 in cash and a gun sitting there.
Right. As you do. I don't blame you.
When you travel, I don't ever have that kind of money at home. I'll let people know that.
Although we're not driving a truck for our upcoming move, we're having U-Haul ship it through one of their pods. Not pods like pod beef, but you load it up and they ship it for you.
I'm trying to start a pod beef with who's the cartoonist who does Flaming Freedom? Dale.
Oh, why?
I don't know, because I want to get him on the Anarchy Gumbo and have a pod beef. Because I've complained a lot about things he said about BDSM, and emailed it to him, and he never wrote back. He never, as far as I know, read it on his show. He never addressed it in any way. And the other day, I posted. He did this link that was this cartoon that was really funny. It was 2 spiders talking about trading 3 flies for a cricket. And then this other spider comes in, this government spider, and says, I'm going to need to take a portion of that transaction. And the one spider calls the government spider a blood-sucking statist or something. And the name of the cartoon is arachno-capitalists. And I thought it was really funny, and I posted on his wall. I said, arachno-capitalists, good one. And he posted back like, I can't believe you posted this without posting a link to my comic. And I said, I didn't know there was a terms of service to complimenting you.
So you got the pod beef just keeps growing. As far as you're concerned, he's got some splaining to do.
Yeah, and then like a couple people that know him and know me like started conversing about him in third person because he was gone. He didn't, and then he came back like 6 hours later and said, you're talking about me on my wall like I'm not here. And I said in the third person, yeah, I would love to have Dale come on the Anarchy Gumbo and continue our pod beef.
Hopefully he does. That should be good listening.
Yeah.
That's good podcasting right there, guys.
So we have some breaking news. A good friend of ours, Jillian Batty, who runs Stateless Sweets, who we do ads for free on the live show, has been arrested on her way to Porkfest for a small amount of marijuana in Texas and is in jail.
Ugh. That is so freaking awful, man. And it's Hudspeth County?
Yeah.
It looks like she was stopped by some people who were supposedly ICE. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And I'm wondering, I'm going to Google the map here, but I'm thinking it might be that's the area where you cross in if you're traveling on I-10.
That's where they always bust people for pot. It's where Willie Nelson got busted, and it's where
and Snoop Dogg
got busted.
Yeah. And according to the cop block thing, if you call them, their hold music is "I Fought the Law" and the Law won.
Yeah, which I'm wondering if they're paying royalties for. Legally you have to pay. That might be something to bring up after. I don't want to fight the state with the state, but somebody might want to bring that up after Jillian is free. And speaking of freeing Jillian, there's a chip in put on by a friend of hers named Jesse Voluntaryist Matheson, who is a friend of hers. It's legit. I've had it, vetted by mutual friends of ours that this is not a scam. It's for real, and the money's really going to her. And the Freedom Fiends donated $100. And if you want to donate to her legal defense fund, I'm going to link that on this cast. This cast is actually going to be called Free Jillian. I always change it, but this is a good reason to change it.
Totally, yeah. And I mean, we should stick together, and she's a friend of the Fiends, and we're a friend of hers, and we want to make sure she can, do whatever's best in this situation, and if she needs a little bit of extra help, I'm willing to help her. Yeah.
Cop Block is trying to help by getting people to call in and hassle the cops about it, but apparently that's not helping, and Jillian has asked to stop it, and Cop Block has posted that Jillian has asked to stop that. Yeah, they put her in solitary because people are calling her.
Yeah, man, such a freaking kindergarten. Not even a kindergarten mentality, because how could she control or affect that? I mean, it just seems
punishing,
vindictive.
Instead of punishing the class for one, it's punishing one for the class.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is total socialism, man. Those Republican Texas cops should know they're acting like socialists and nearly like communists.
They know, but they don't care. It's all a hustle for them, man. They get tons of government money to do this sort of hustle. All it is cash for them. They don't care, man. They're just trying to stuff their pockets.
Can't believe you want to move to Texas, man. It sounds horrible.
Well, I don't want to move to that part of Texas. But when I'm moving, I'm making sure to avoid this, and I always have made it a point. I'm looking up Hudspeth County right now, and it's almost the westernmost county. It looks like there's one more county west of that, but it does look like it is the county that I-10 goes through, and that's where they have the border stop point, where there's always goons there. Some statists are fond of saying the Constitution is null and void if you get within a certain amount of distance from the border, which is just more statist BS. But yeah, whenever I drive to Texas, like the past few times I've done it, I never, ever, ever, ever take I-10 because you're gonna hit one of those checkpoints and it's not gonna be good.
Well, the Constitution of the United States is null and void if you come within 4,000 miles of the border of the United States.
4,000 miles?
Yeah, once you're in America, if you go anywhere over less than 4,000 miles from any of the edge borders, the Constitution is null and void.
Is it 4,000 feet? 4,000 miles is like more than the distance of America.
I'm making a joke.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. Like the whole yeah, got it. Sorry.
Speaking of the Constitution,
I was driving and I made the mistake of taking I-10, And somehow we got lucky because this was a long time ago. It was me and my cousin, and we were driving through, and we were just smoking bowls like every 15 minutes, literally the whole way. And we had just got done, and I was young and stupid, so I didn't know that the checkpoint was there, and there was a frickin' checkpoint. And we nearly shit our pants. And luckily, we'd caught them on their lunch break or something. So the dog was like over getting fed and nobody was there. There was just a sign saying, just go on through. And I was like, thank the Lord.
Wow. Did you say praise Allah?
I said yes.
That's what they think you'd say because you have a beard.
I had a goatee back then. I was a little bit more westernized.
Yeah. You look like one of those people. I love it. I love
people.
I love that people watch the Guns and Weed movie and like you scare the right wingers because you look like a young Middle Eastern angry young man and you're toting an AK, and I scare the liberals because I'm a plump middle-aged guy who lives in Middle America toting an AK.
Yeah. Trying to break down your fears by scaring you.
Yeah.
You should be less afraid. That's the Freedom Fiends mantra.
So speaking of money and donations in the Constitution, since Rand Paul is immoral and not only betrayed the Constitution and his vows and his father, if anyone's been donating money to Rand Paul, you should just donate it to the Fiends instead. We'll do better things with it. Rand Paul ain't going to help bail out some chick in Texas.
Nah, Rand Paul's not going to do anything except for bend over and take it from the GOP establishment.
Hell, I would say the same thing if you're donating money to Ron Paul. I think we would make better use of it than him.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's nothing
we don't
against
know
him,
what Ron Paul's going to do after he's out of Congress. I think he could do a lot better things than
I don't think he'll need any money to do it, though, man.
Yeah.
You know, I think he needs a blog to do what he's going to do.
Yeah. I think so, too. I think, and it's hard to say this, but Ben Stone is right when he says that Ron Paul, he was talking the talk, but if you really think about it, he wasn't really walking the walk. Yeah, he was voting against things, but he was part of the government. It's aggression to even be in the state house or in the Congress and get money and speak on their microphones. I mean, those are all microphones paid for with stolen money.
Ben Stone is so often right, like all the time, that I think there should be T-shirts and bumper stickers and dime cards that say Ben Stone is right. Or Ben Stone was right. Because Ben Stone actually totally predicted that Rand Paul would do this. He was talking a year ago saying, when it gets close to the election, he thought it was going to happen later, like, a month before the election. But he said...
Yeah, they'll offer you a false Ron Paul and it could be Rand.
Yeah. Did he say it could be Rand?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He said possibly his son.
Yeah,
I'm assuming he meant Rand.
Yeah,
since Rand is the one who's also a senator.
I think he's got some other sons, but who knows who they are? I looked at Rand Paul's ophthalmology website the other day. It's pretty funny. It's just a really boring, simple I provide LASIK in the area in Kentucky, wherever he is, Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Yeah. Although I guess Rand had been kind of telegraphing it for a while. He never took as hard or a principled a stance as his dad, ever, especially on foreign policy. I mean, he voted for Iran sanctions. He was always more buddy-buddy with the establishment than his dad ever was. So, I mean, I'm not saying I called it, but it doesn't surprise me as much as some people were surprised.
Yeah.
And I guess you're at the point where you don't even pay attention to the state anymore.
I'm stealing
politics.
I'm stealing money from the Fiends right now. I'm working on something. I'm actually working on the show notes for this cast.
FreedomFeens.com, 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 Freedom Fiends, Freedom Fiends, FreedomFeens.com, 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 Freedom Fiends, Freedom Fiends, FreedomFeens.com, FreedomFeens.com, FreedomFeens.com.
I have a prediction. The first time the U.S. government kills a citizen on U.S. soil with a drone, they'll crash the drone into the person and make it look like an accident.
Why do you think
so?
that, though?
You don't think so?
See, I think if they do it, they'll want to be making a precedent, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's sort of the way they've always done things. They love to set a precedent for evil. It's sort of the frog in the boiling water kind of thing.
Although, in an incremental way, if they want to boil the frog, they might try to it killed somebody and nobody else was hurt and the guy was a bad guy. Although, I think if they were going to do it by accident, it wouldn't be the child molester they're going to do it with the first time when they do it legitimately or, openly. I think it would be someone they want dead who no one knows who they are. Like the Fiends. No, we're too public. There are people... there's probably some guy who's funding anti-war stuff or anti-Obama stuff or something that no one's heard of, who's just some billionaire who's funneling his money into something good, and the government would want him dead.
Maybe. I guess I just feel like if they're going to play dumb, there's a lot more discreet ways for them to disappear somebody or get rid of somebody. I mean, look how a lot of people think that the CIA killed one of JFK's girlfriends after he died because she was going to come public with something. And, she just got shot or killed in a park, and the newspaper wrote up a story about how some bum or just some random criminal killed her. They can do... Theoretically, they have it in their power to do stuff like that. That's a lot less attention grabbing, a lot less going to be in the headlines or a national story. Whenever a drone crashes, even if nobody dies, it's in the national news.
Yeah. Worms. So did you see that other email I sent you about, it's pretty funny, about a vending machine in Japan that provides instant weddings?
A wedding vending machine. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Now, although, these are state weddings, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
right?
but even so, it's friggin' hilarious. It says it's a machine that
I'm looking at a picture of it now.
It says it makes a quickie Vegas ceremony seem like overkill. This automated marriage bot does everything you need and even provides the rings. Now, see, for a modest fee of $1, wow, and it asks all the important questions. It applies a pair of plastic keepsake rings that you'll treasure forever.
And it looks like it just prints out the wedding license.
I love it.
Marriage license.
I love it. I don't, even though it's a state bot 2000, I like the fact that it exists because I think it is a vision of how things would work in LibPair. I think in LibPair you'd be able to get weddings from vending machines, weed, heroin, bullets. It'd be great.
Yeah, completely. Oh, I love it completely. Any automated, simple things like that are completely wonderful.
That the groom kind of looks like you.
Kind of. Less facial hair, more head hair.
It's the Japanese Neema.
Oh, he kind of does. Yeah, I guess so.
His physicality and it's more than just his face and his hair.
There's a Neema on every continent.
There's a Neema. What is it they say? If you're 1 in a million, there's 8 of you in New York City.
There you go. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Speaking of automation, we did not yet address one of our talkbacks from the live show. He was asking, how does automation and things like that, or even planned obsolescence, how does that kind of stuff play out in the future in LibPair?
Well,
thoughts or fantasies?
I mean, isn't there a whole movement called what is it called? There's kind of a crossover with libertarians and leftists with
Are you talking about the resource-based economy stuff, like Zeitgeist type stuff?
The Zeitgeist movement, that's it. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole, documentary film that has a whole, lifestyle behind it. Now, that's the way to really sell media, too, is to, make it a lifestyle, so people want to it's their mission to pass it on for you. I've often thought about how can I do that, and I haven't quite hit it yet. I think
ours is just huffing jankum and shooting crocodiles.
I know. I think you have to be
that's not very friendly to most people.
I think you have to be a little more sinister than me. I think you really have to be the the two science fiction writers having the bet of who can start the better cult to do that. We were talking
Aldous Huxley and
no, it was Moon is a Harsh Mistress. It was Heinlein and the guy who started Scientology supposedly had a bet.
L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah,
that's right.
We actually had a fiend who wrote in and said his dad was in the room when that bet was made, and it's real.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but
it's all coming back.
We were talking about this thing called Psychick TV, which was a cult. Let me read a little. what was their cult, man? Psychic TV, Genesis Peorage, who I hate because he sued Rick Rubin because he fell off Rick Rubin's roof when he wasn't supposed to be
Rick
there.
Rubin didn't even know he was there.
I know.
For who
He was guests of Love and Rockets, and he was like probably high on something. He always is. I've met him. I mean, he was higher. I think he lives higher on drugs, probably psychedelics mostly, than any person I've ever met who's functional. Yeah, Genesis Peorage. I met him in San Francisco at a
mostly Jenkum
coffee shop. Yeah. Yeah, he's weird. He's like, he and his wife, like, he didn't have a sex change, but he had surgery. He and his wife have had surgery to make themselves look more like each other. Like, he had breast implants and she had cheekbone implants, and he's weird.
And to join their cult, you have to send them samples of your semen and feces.
Yeah, yeah. What was that? Temple of Psychick Youth.
Ah, that's right. That's right. Because when you first said it, you were like, I think it was Sonic Youth. And you were like, no, that's not right.
I know that's not right. I know that's right.
I know. You corrected yourself.
Yeah. The Temple of OV Psychic with a K Youth. Yeah. Weirdos. Yeah. I mean, I knew people in San Francisco that were in that, and they took it really seriously. And it was like, you know, they tithed their money to these people and sent them their semen, their blood, their tears, and their hair to join the cult.
Yeah,
I
don't mind sharing my lifestyle and saying if you dig it, you know, you can do some of the things I do. But this whole cult stuff, or you should follow these rules to be one of us.
The Temple of Psychic Youth totally strikes me as like a couple people were sitting around saying, "Okay, who can make the better cult?"
Yeah,
and you know, I mean, I don't know why people join that. I can see why people start it. You know, it's free money and pussy, but you know. Free money in whatever part of a body you're into sticking your thing into.
Yeah. And back to that whole zeitgeist resource economy. And
boy,
stuff
how
like
did
that.
We get off on that, man?
I don't know. Well, I guess because of the whole lifestyle cult type things. I'm not calling the zeitgeist people a cult, but one of the things that did struck me. You are?
Yeah.
Fair enough. You can make that statement, but I'm not going that far
I don't know.
yet.
I wouldn't really say a cult. I mean, they don't have all the monikers of a cult, but I mean, libertarianism has all the monikers of a cult, except, well, in a way, it has some of them. I mean, at least for me, like you know, one of the monikers of a cult, the markers of a cult is that you stop associating with people who don't believe like you do. I can't talk to statists anymore.
Yeah, but you're easily irritated. I'm a little bit more patient. I have no problem talking to statists.
Yeah, okay.
Now, I won't say zeitgeist people are a cult, but one of the things that did strike
Zeitgeist. It's a German word. It means traveling ghost.
I thought it meant spirit of the times.
It does, but the literal translation of them is like traveling ghost of the times.
Ah, okay. Fair enough. Either way, one of the things that struck me most about their whole vision of the future is this idea that there'll be a resource-based economy, people won't have to work, machines will do everything for us, and you know, everything will be, it seems like everything would have to be planned, centrally administered, and everybody would be pretty much the same. So I don't see how it differs very much from, you know, the socialist paradise that people were.
It really
were talking
reminds
about,
me
other than robots.
Of the like 60s vision of the future that I kind of had as a kid of like the scientists are the nobility and you know the scientists are the they and that's what they say. And you know there was this whole 60s, 70s, 50s even vision of the future of like science will free mankind and enable him to do, you know, to work a 4-hour week and have unlimited free time and live in this paradise. But governments won't let that happen. I mean, that literally could have happened, but they, you know, we didn't end up with labor-saving devices in 4-hour weeks. We ended up with, you know, $150 million drones by the thousands flying over our heads spying on us.
Yeah. Although we did get quite a few labor-saving devices. I mean, computers.
The computer is the thing. The computer is like the genie out of the bottle, though, too. The computer is the. I mean, I've talked many times about how when I was a kid, I wanted to talk to the world from my room. Like I was interested in shortwave radio and low-powered radio and built transmitters and like, you know, I wanted to do what we're doing right now. But the technology did not exist.
Yeah. Here's the other thing about technology is no matter how easy it makes your life, you're still going to have people to build it to design it, to upgrade it, to maintain it, all those sorts of things. And the other thing I think is, it's not necessarily a bad thing to work to produce things. I think there'll always be people that want to produce things.
Well,
and if it's not hard labor, then it'll be something you love, and I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't want to just sit on my ass all day. I mean, I'm scared of retirement because what the hell am I gonna do?
I mean, the thing with technology is, people who want to invent things will do it whether they're paid or not. They can do a better job with it if they're paid. But literally, okay, let's say we could use the machines to harvest all the grain and maintain the roads and do all that stuff, and they were in private hands. There would some people would first of all, governments would get involved, and it wouldn't be, the labor saved would not be distributed. It would be kept and stolen by the government. So Ben Quaker talks really interesting stuff about how, like, governments encouraged grain production because a grain field and harvesting and grain processing equipment sat in one place and was easier to tax than people hunting and gathering.
It's easier to tax. People are more reliant on the economic system, and they're more likely to congregate in places like cities, which, as you can see from modern America, it's a lot easier to be tyrannical in a city than it is in a large, spread out type of area.
Although we're going to talk about the Casper smoking ordinance passing its second reading in a few minutes.
Even then, though, I mean, Casper is the third or second biggest city in Wyoming, so relatively speaking, it is a city. And there's no smoking ban in, like, Fremont County. Yeah.
And the tyranny is like 20 years behind. I mean, there's places in California that did this 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess what I would say is that the technology has to be distributed rather than located in one brick building somewhere, or, large brick buildings that are easier to control and tax and regulate. And really, I think the computer is the labor-saving device that has done that. Although I've seen a lot of serious, jokes that are true of, like, cartoons of, computers were supposed to be labor-saving devices, but now I just spend 18 hours a day in front of a computer.
Right. Well, see, technology is a tool. It's not a savior. It's a tool just like anything else, just like fire. Fire can be used for good or for bad, for destructive, for creation. Technology is the same way. So I don't think we can rely on technological advancements to set us free. Now, if people think free in their brains and they want to be free, they can use technology to aid their freedom, and it makes it easier. I firmly believe that. I mean, look at the internet. But I don't think you can just sit back and say, oh, well, technology will free us in a few years anyway.
Yeah.
This is the Central Scrutinizer. We're working very hard to spend your tax money to keep you from hearing things like freedomfiends.com. That's why we're very upset about freedomfiends.cz. freedomfiends.cz is a Liberty Media archive of Freedom Fiends material hosted in the Czech Republic. freedomfiends.cz is outside the jurisdiction of the Watchers, who employ me, the Central Scrutinizer, to keep you from hearing things that might make you think. My fellow Scrutinizers and I do not want you to visit freedomfiends.cz. Do not visit freedomfiends.cz.
Roland. So I was going to say, to me, freedom comes from inside. It comes from your brain. Sometimes even your subconscious. I was thinking about this when I was out on a break here running errands. But think about lines, standing in line at the grocery store or at a Subway. I'm sure libertarians have talked about this before, but that's a perfect example of anarchic order. There's no rule or law about how lines should work. We just sort of know it. It just sort of makes sense to us. Whoever's first there stands there, and whoever's next stands next to them in line. People don't cut. Have you ever seen that happen in your life, Michael? Somebody just, you'd be in line at a grocery store and somebody just comes and cuts in line. Have you ever seen that happen?
Very rarely.
You have seen it happen,
not at the grocery store, usually for, like, bathrooms or something. Or actually, here's where I've seen it. This is funny, and it's a morality play, and it's true. When I was trying to get off heroin, there was this place called the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic where they had a detox center. It was outpatient. And I signed up for it. And to sign up for it, you had to go 3 days in a row at like, between 8 a.m. and 8:15 a.m. and sign up because they wanted to make sure people were committed to, that they could show up somewhere at the same place at the same time because they didn't want to waste the few slots they had.
Right.
And I did it. I signed up. I went to do it, and they only let 5 people a day sign up on this thing. Mm-hmm. And I went there. The third day I was supposed to go there, I was like, oh, this is it. I'll get in and I'll get off fucking heroin. They'll help me. And they do. They're very helpful. And they, somebody cut in front of line, in front of me in line the last day, like some junkie cut in front of line and signed up and, stole my spot. And, I came the next day and got in line and got in. So, it only delayed me one day. And it was when I finally got clean. The guy who cut in front of me, I saw him like 3 years later, totally strung out on the street corner begging for change. And the moral of the story is like,
don't cut in line.
Yeah, it is though. 'Cause it's kind of like to get clean, you need to be kind of humbled. You need to be, that's part of how 12-step stuff works. You need to
it's not a quick fix. It's a hard work kind of thing.
And you can't be cocky about it. And I think that the fact that guy was so cocky and like, I gots to get mine, motherfucker, is part of the reason he was still strung out years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying it like, I guess I'm saying it a little like, but I'm, it's a really serious thing, and I'm not meaning that I'm, I hope that guy dies in a gutter, and I hope he got clean later. I never saw him at meetings, and I went for like 10 years, but, that's the moral of the story is, you have to cutting in lines will kill you. That's the moral of the
story. It'll have you be strung out on heroin in a gutter somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you had another question from, one of our favorite fiends, didn't you?
Yeah. What? Huh? Oh, you read it. I'm answering questions about Jillian. You read it.
Okay. Let's just find it here. Okay. I don't have it, but you were from one of our fiends. He was asking us about marriage. I guess he's getting in trouble wherever he's at for his statements from both the bigots and the gays because of his stance on, I guess his stance is the government should be out of marriage. Is that right?
Yeah. 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 And he says that he's getting, being considered a pariah. He says, I'm now hated by both gays and anti-gay bigots for saying, marriage is a deal between two parties and shouldn't involve the government.
And so I don't get why, I guess because both parties are statist, but why does anybody think that the government should be the one handing out marriages? And I guess the person who said it best for me was Stefan Molyneux, where he says, if the government's in the business of marriage, I mean, nobody would think it was right for the government to choose literally who you married. Like if you had to go to a government list and they assigned you
I know,
a partner.
That's one of the indicators of a cult too, is they tell you who you could be romantically involved with.
Right. And this is the same thing. If the government gives out marriage licenses, it's the same thing. It's only a matter of degrees in difference. Just like we say North Korea and the United States are the same, it's just a matter of degrees. That's the same thing with marriage. If the state is in the business of handing out licenses, the power to license is the power to control. And licensing for marriages actually started because certain people petitioned the government because they didn't want there to be interracial marriages. Yeah. So that was how marriage was born, was discrimination. So people,
that's how gun bans were born in America too.
Gun bans
freed slaves from, most laws that we're against all laws, but the laws that we're like most angered by are generally laws that were started out of racism in America.
Right, right. So what you do is you tell the gays, look gays, look gays, marriage, government marriage started as a way to keep black people, mostly black men, from marrying white women. That's how it started. The government controlling marriages is the same concept. Instead of arguing for the government to also license your marriage, you should be arguing for there to be no government sanction of marriage. And as far as the bigots go, you tell bigots, hey guys, you're bigots. You don't want the government to control marriage anyway. And usually I guess what he's calling the bigots are, religious elements. People say marriage should be defined as a man and a woman because of its biblical connotations. Well, if they're statists, you can tell them, hey, there's supposed to be a separation of church and state. For the government to sanction a biblical definition or a moral definition of marriage, that's violating your statist philosophy because it's mixing church with state. And
I always go back to the Ben Quaker thing of, if you truly believe God is the one and the ruler, when you authorize the state to do anything, you're kicking God off the throne. That, I like to tell Christians that, and I also like to tell them that Jesus was killed by the government after a fair trial for the crime of sedition, and they were aided in doing that by police and soldiers who were just following orders. And anyone who says, well, that was the ancient Roman government, and that's different, it's like, no, all governments are the same. And Rome is the blueprint for American democracy. I mean, a lot of the things in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence, which, are the founding documents of our country's legal system, go back to the Magna Carta, which traces itself back to Roman law.
Yeah, right. Well, you're setting up a false idol. I mean, if you're worshiping the state, you're worshiping somebody who isn't God, like Ben Stone says. And the other thing is, biblically, you're supposed to be married in the eyes of the Lord, right? I mean, that's between you and God. It's not between you and Barack Obama or whatever governor of the state is that's issuing your marriage license.
And another little tacit thing here, the first democracy was Greece, and they are proving right now the idea that democracies fail because people realize they can vote instead of work for a living.
Their own money, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Democracy or elections are an advanced auction of stolen goods.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, those are your answers. You tell the bigots, hey, you're violating your own religious precepts here if you're arguing for the government to define marriage, because that's none of the government's business. You shouldn't even be worshiping the government as the provider of law. That is supposed to be your Lord's job and your Lord's job only. Look at the Ten Commandments. He says, I'm the only God. If that means he's the lawgiver, you can't look to Washington, D.C. or whatever your local government is to give you law, or you're violating the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
Are you one of the 12% of Americans who still approves of our government? Then we need your help to force the other 88% into compliance. When you're not busy spying on your neighbors or squinting at everyone, tell anyone who will listen why more government is a good thing. You'll get a warm and fuzzy feeling demanding more taxes and arguing in favor of gun control while militarizing our police, because folks just aren't smart enough to handle real freedom.
That is so square. Check out the additional Freedom Fiends show, Freedom Fiends Live, every Sunday on the LRN.FM streaming feed or satellite radio.
Broadcasting live and worldwide from a windowless bunker inside a mountain near an undisclosed location in the rural Wild West of the occupied states of America.
Freedom Fiends Live expands on the Fiends' weekly Wednesday podcasts, but now we're kicking the hornet's nest live. Talk back to the backtalkers every Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. East Coast time. From the makers of Guns and Weed, The Road to Freedom. Freedom Fiends Live. Call in soon before we get droned. Yeah, marriage, you tell the bigots marriage should be between you and your spouse and your God and your church and not your government. And tell the gays, why are you waiting for a permission slip? And a lot of, there are workarounds, and they, basically, like, the things that gay marriage in government marriage legal allows is things like, being able to be at your loved one's bedside in a hospital, if they're dying or hurt. A few things about, like, inheritance and a few things like that. Those things can be taken care of with other documents. DJ and I have those documents, even though we're legally married, in a state that recognizes our marriage.
You can do it with the power of attorney, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, we both have medical directives, we both have wills, we keep copies of them with us. Mm-hmm. If somebody's injured, there's a card in the car where someone can access them online. And gays often, I've heard the argument of, well, yeah, but we don't want to have to do that. And I'm like, it's a lot easier than begging your government to let you do something.
Yeah, it's a lot easier than spending millions of dollars on some kind of political campaign.
And getting politicians like Barack Obama who, will flip-flop and will eventually lean towards allowing it, giving you permission, but at the same time are stealing tons of your money to kill brown people and not letting you smoke weed.
Yeah, exactly. Why support the system? Why sit there and get on your knees and give the system the legitimacy to tell you whether or not you can marry each other or not?
On your knees for the state.
Yeah, don't be on your knees for the state.
Don't blow the state. You gays.
Hey, NSA, just in case you didn't hear that, he said don't blow the state. All right?
Yeah. And I'm talking about fellatio, not explosions.
Talking about Bill Clinton kind of blow before Iraq.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, Václav lives in Europe. He lives in the Prague Republic. He lives in the Czech Republic. And, you know, I read a lot of stuff from all over the world. And people in Europe, and I know in Prague, tend to be a little more statist than, you know, young people, especially than the average American, I think. You know, the FEENS main following is in America, and then we have a lot of people in Canada. There's a lot of people in Canada who get it, but in Europe, it's so entrenched that the state is your mother and your father.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen reviews of Guns and Weed online, you know, on Amazon and other places of like, they just can't get it in Europe. They're just like, well, you know, I guess marijuana should be, or marijuana is legal in my country, but it should be, you know, guns should be heavily regulated or only available to police. And it's like, you know, these are the same people that get upset when laws by the police are enforced by those police with guns against them. Yeah. And they don't see the connection. I mean, even in the UK where like, there's a long history of gun ownership that only recently got incredibly regulated to the point where pretty much, you know, you might be able to have a single shot shotgun if you're rich and in a hunting club on private land and they keep it in a box controlled by the government. But you can't have a gun in England anymore. And England has a really long tradition of guns. I mean, you know, both militarily and in private hands. I mean, every farm in England had a gun up until a couple decades ago or a decade ago. And, you know, people owned guns in their home. And
well, I think, like you've said before, England's sort of become the testing ground for new tyranny in the Western world.
Yeah, it's like a tyranny happens in England, and 10 years later it happens in California. 10 years later it happens in the rest of the country, and then 10 years later it happens in Wyoming. So
the smoking ban.
Yeah, which we're leading to. But, you know, Robin Kerner said that the reason England gave up their guns so much is they don't have the connection in their mind of guns as freedom like we do in America. And I'm like, yeah, that's because America was formed when citizens used guns to shoot England, to shoot soldiers from England.
They think of guns as making them lose their colonies.
I know. Colonies. So the smoking ordinance has passed the second reading in Casper. The third reading is set for June 19th. And you know,
which once it passes the first reading, that's it. I've never seen them vote no if they vote yes on the first.
And
reading.
they had a town hall meeting, and people came in and gave stirring speeches about the Constitution and the horrors of the Patriot Act and the slippery slope. Others had strong feelings around the issue of rights and freedoms. One exchange between James Seary and Mayor Kanye Schlager even caused police.
Man, don't dirty Kanye's name with her.
Even caused Police Chief Chris Walsh to move forward and briefly stand in the aisle. And here's the speech that caused the police to step in because they thought there was going to be another, you know, the first shot of of American Revolution II, apparently. He said, I serve my country, and it's all this status stuff. I hate it, but it's, you know, I still give him kudos for standing up and even doing this, because if I stood up at this meeting, they'd think I was speaking Martian if I told my opinions on it. He said, I serve my country and I'm proud to be an American, but I'm tired of the BS that's going on in this nation. And you guys better think about it hard, because come election time, I don't want to think you all are going to be sitting up there. I may even run myself because I'm tired of the BS that's going on. You better go home and sleep on it tonight, because you're following what's going on in this country, and there's a lot of people who are tired of it. And I hope we could do it at the ballot box instead of the bullet box. Thank you. Okay, it's like, it's a statist speech, but it makes me weepy with, like, you fucking go, statist. You go. I would buy him a beer and a cigarette.
Yeah. I would. And a cigarette. Yeah.
I mean,
so what is the ban? It's a ban on smoking in bars, like any
any public place, and like parks. I think a few other places, and even like there's no exception for like private clubs. Here's the thing that's screwed up about this is even in the democratic realm, these people are being unfathomable. They're being bad because they've taken polls, and a majority of people in this county do not agree with this law, but they are passing it anyway as representatives of us because they believe they know best.
Yeah, yeah. Mama knows best. Daddy State knows best.
I wonder if there's like some money involved. Like, I'm not accusing anyone of taking bribes, but I would just like to follow the money. I wonder if there's any like
government money, like grants,
any money. If there's anything that's like not being disclosed, that's being, if anyone got a boat or anything like that.
Well, I remember when I was reporting there was a group called Smoke Free Natrona County, and they were so hardcore about it, and they were always about fundraising and imposing their tyranny. And I don't know what they've done because I haven't been in Wyoming, but I would look to them for any kind of deal like that and see if there's any kind of favors they've been offering.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing is, to me, how completely socialist is it to do something like a smoking ban? Like, not just statist, but completely balls to the wall. Everybody must do the same thing. They're basically saying the public owns your bar just because you serve the public. And if you follow that same line of logic, then you better take that sign down you have in your bar that says we have the right to refuse service to anyone. And you better stop whenever you get somebody really drunk and you decide not to serve them. That should be against the law too, because the government decides what you do with your own private business in a world like that.
If you stood up at a town hall meeting in California or New York and said, I hope we can settle this at the ballot box instead of with the bullet box, I think you'd be arrested on the spot. I really do.
I don't doubt it. And I've never lived in California, thank God, but I'll take your word for it.
I will say this. There are some ballsy tyrants in Casper. The city council, they get death threats, and not just like anonymous. They get like people standing up at the meeting and basically saying, people have been shot for this. That's basically what that guy's saying. He's not saying I'm going to shoot you, but he's saying like, tyrants get shot. He's saying that. And, he walked out of the meeting and got in his car and went home. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I like it. I like Wyoming. I like that people can still say things like that here.
Yeah. Yeah. Although, the thing about the city council is they've got more guns than you guys do. Maybe not, but, Casper does have a sizable police department for what it is, and I'm sure they have. If they don't have more guns, they have the best guns.
They're trying to add more. They're trying to add more cars too. They're not just trying to add more cops. They're trying to say every pair of cops is going to be split up and each given a car, and they want to buy more cars with stolen tax money for that. Basically to have more of a presence on the street. So like, how in Wyoming now you could go days without seeing a cop car. You can't downtown, but you can often in a lot of places, and you could drive hours without seeing a cop car. And in this county, they want to change that. They want you to have to see a cop car twice as often.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said earlier, it has nothing to do with the populace there. This isn't people voting themselves more protection. They, like you said, and I've seen the polls, where they do polls about banning smoking. And the government is doing what they feel is what a proper government does. California did it. Denver did it. So they're just following what's fashionable for tyrants right now.
I wonder what the plan is for these out-of-state city council people in the future. Are they going to...
They're going to go to some other small town and tyrannize it?
Yeah. I wonder. They can't...
Traveling tyrants.
I don't know if there's term limits or not on the city council here, but I can't imagine a couple of those people are going to get reelected. There's so many people that hate them. And they moved here to be politicians. Is there like some central dispatch organization that's like, oh, well, Bozeman, Montana requires a tyrant. We'll send you there. The Tyranny Marines. Yep.
Nice. Yeah. That might be the case. It would not surprise me. I'll put it that way.
All right, man. It's been a good fiend day. And, I think we're at the end of our talk here.
Good fiend
Our
scene.
long talk. This may be the longest cast ever, but,
it's all good stuff though.
Worms.
Worms.
Hello, Freedom Fiends. It's your boy Dean from the U.S. Get the U.S. out my bloodstream. I-O-me and that include endorphins. No one won't ask permission and I won't say please. Freedom fans, one fact that I gotta make clear is...
The Freedom Fiends podcast is covered by a Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike 3.0 license. Do what you want with it and spread it around. Tell 2 friends. Make copies. Email it to everyone you know. Go on the site and comment. This is a conversation. Every week, we'll have an exciting new episode where Michael W. Dean and Neema Vedadi weave their own unique take on the way the world works and how to find your place in it. Available from freedomfeens.com. That's FREEDOMFEENS.com.
Freedom Fiends is proudly syndicated by Alterati.com and the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Subscribe and tell 2 friends.
And remember, the only power they have is the power you allow them.